Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you are well. I sorry for being slightly late. For some reason, my computer just decided to shut down at the very last seconds. It was a little bit strange. So I hope you can hear me okay. It'd be great if you could say hello. Hi, Tom. Hi, everybody. Ellen is here. Catherine's here. So hopefully everyone can hear me. So if you can give a little bit of a confirmation, that'd be really great. So I'm not talking to myself. So how is everybody this evening? So we need to talk about how to stop sabotaging yourself and your business. So this is such a really, really common thing that I want to address this very simply, very, very head on in a very simple way. And then you can decide what you wish to do about it. So please, if you would like to ask questions, I'll try and keep up with those. Some of them I might leave to the end. We do a Q&A at the end if you need to. But what we'll also do is, if you ask questions, I'll try and reply to them and put them in context of what we're talking about. So I hope that's okay with everybody. Perhaps we'll wait a few more moments if anybody else is coming on. But we'll get going very, very shortly. So yeah, just let me know if you have any questions and then we can start speaking. Okay, start getting on. So how to stop self-sabotaging your business and your career. So who is this session for? People who know they're holding back their business and their career, and anybody who manages people who are not not performing at the level. This is mainly not for people who are managers, but we'll talk about that a little bit. But it's mainly for people who know they're holding back their businesses or starting their own business or holding back their career. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So hopefully you're in the right place, because many, many people do this. So who am I? My name's Stephen Bates. I'm the founder of my company called Certain Change back in 2002. In fact, it was going a little bit before that, but I founded Certain Change back in 2002, so that's quite a while ago. Husband, father, stepfather. I've got the Brady Bunch, got loads of kids. And I'm an ex-physiotherapist, and I'll explain why that's so important in a minute. And I'm a passionate tango dancer. If you ever want to understand what leading and following is, understanding how to communicate, go learn tango, because it'll open your eyes. It will really make you really think about what leading is all about. But the ex-physiotherapist is a very, very important thing, and I'll come to that story in a moment. So the purpose of this session is to show you why people hold back in their businesses and careers when they know they don't want to. When they absolutely know they don't want to, they're very frustrated, but they keep doing it. So that is the purpose of this session. So I'm going to be answering the question, why do so many people hold themselves back? It's a big question, it's an important question, and we're going to answer it. We'll be talking about why people sabotage their business, why people sabotage their career. And as I said, if you have staff, why a shocking 40% of people do the same, sabotage their own behavior, and therefore accidentally possibly sabotage your business or the team that you're in. So if you have a team, we've got a webinar about this topic next month. We tend to run webinars, one about individuals, which is this one, and then one about managing teams every other month. So if you have that as a particular need, then you can use this box here, and you can ask for details on that, and then we will send you the details of that particular webinar, because it's going to be slightly different from this one. We like conducting polls. We do them on LinkedIn, and one of the polls we conducted had 25,000 people view it, and we asked a simple question: what stops you from really pushing your business or career forwards? And 46% of people said not believing in themselves, and 35% said fear of failing. So a lot of people observed it, a lot of people responded to it, and nearly 80% of people it was about these two very common things: not believing in yourself, and really the consequences of failing. So these are the two things that most people think. It's the obvious things of I'm not sure if I can do it, and if I don't do it, what's going to be the problem? So these are the obvious things that we all know. And if we all know these things, if we all understand, and most of us think, yeah, okay, that's pretty obvious, Stephen, why is it such a prevalent problem? And this is what we're going to be explaining today, because people know this. I don't believe in myself, imposter syndrome, tall poppy syndrome, don't think I'm good enough, I'm smart enough. Or what will the consequences be of if I mess this up? What will the damage be to my career, my salary, my business, and all the ramifications of that? So that is something that we pretty much identify with. It makes sense. We know this stuff. So if that's the case and we know this stuff, why is it still a problem? And that's what I'm going to be explaining tonight. And I like explaining it in a way that's just, it's like almost like, oh, that makes sense. Because it's not a hugely, it's puzzling, but it's actually quite straightforward, because it's all based on really how our brains are set up. So I'm going to give it to you in a very easy way. So hopefully you'll just think, oh, I understand why I've been doing it now. So to do this, we're going to be exploring what I call a sabotage loop. And I first noticed these over 25 years ago. And this is where the physiotherapy bit comes in. So over 25 years ago, I started my first business, and people coming in real acute pain, they're coming in and saying, I can't pick up my kids, I can't go to work, I can't earn money, I can't do my hobbies, I hurt. And what I did was I did my best with the tools and techniques that I had learnt and to help them. But that wasn't all I did. I gave them a bit of advice, as you would expect. Stop doing this, stop going. One of the hardest things is to tell a rugby player to not play rugby for 2 weeks. But I gave them little bits of advice about don't sit in front of your desk for 8 hours, do these few bits of stretching, do these few exercises. And funny enough, the people who did them got better faster. They came to see me less, they had paid less money to me, they went away happier, they were in less pain, much faster. But a significant amount of people didn't do the sensible, obvious thing. They said to me, when I asked them, they said to me, oh, I forgot, or I was a bit busy, and my favorite one was, I don't know. They just went, They didn't know why they hadn't done the things to help them. And I was thinking to myself, well, if we do this when we're in real physical pain, acute physical pain, when and where else do we do it? And the answer is everywhere. We do it with our health, but we do it in work, business, money, relationships, absolutely everything. And this number of about 40% is something that I've noticed over the last 20 plus years of studying this as a very common number. So it's a lot of people get stuck in what I call a sabotage loop, where they don't do the things they know could help them. Today, I had a client who contacted me very, very happy because they got a contract of a size that they would never have ever pitched before. They would never have gone for that contract size before. And the client didn't even quibble over it. So we've been working with them for about 5 weeks now, looking at why they would never go to a client, even though they have enormous expertise, even though clients are really happy with them, but they would never pitch at the price they should be pitching at, or the length of time to get to do the job properly. So they always underpitch themselves. So in just a few weeks, they've had this perfect client. They pitched the new offer and the client went, yeah, no problem. Perfect. And they were like, wow. And they've been holding back for years. So they've been damaging their business for years and years. They're really talented. People have told them they create good results. And this is the puzzling thing. For many people, they know they're good at what they do, but they hold themselves back. And that's just one example. I've got hundreds over the years. I have another client who's landed a colossally large business client. And 5 months ago, they would not have dreamt of going anywhere near this size of client. And we're talking a huge multinational where before they were targeting people, individual solopreneurs for a couple of thousand. Now they are looking at contracts of the tens to hundreds of thousands in just a few months. Now that sounds like amazing. And we're going to talk about testimonials and social proof later. And I'm not going to throw you loads of these because I'm going to talk about why we don't want to believe them, even though these are true. But these people always had the ability to work at this level. They just wouldn't let themselves. And soon as they turned off the sabotage thinking that got in the way, all of a sudden, they just responded at a higher level and got an amazing result. And it was actually quite easy. Things just happened because, well, this is what I'm going to show you. So they were getting in their own way when they didn't need to. So there are different types of sabotage loops, and all are very destructive. But there's simple characteristics, which I'm going to explain to you about what they do and why they happen. And they cost businesses, individuals, an absolute fortune in terms of revenue and salaries, but also job satisfaction, doing what you want to do, working at the level you could work at, and also just living the life you want to live. And I know it sounds a very cliched sort of thing to say, but people are allowing themselves to go on holidays simply because they won't, they are allowing themselves just to take time off because they're not living in fear of what's going to go wrong. And they're living at such a low level of terror almost. And this is one of the problems that happens. Sabotage loops are all very destructive because they're usually fear-based. So I'm going to get into explaining that now. So this happens to everybody. So this 40% can be at any level. And I work with entrepreneurs, business leaders, managers, team members. Everybody can have this problem. And I had this problem. And it wasn't until I started studying it and realized that this is what I was doing in my business, and it damaged my personal life and my business life. And it was an eye-opener because when you realize why we do this, why we sabotage ourselves, it actually becomes quite clear and obvious that it's just a mistake. It's an error. Therefore, it's actually quite simple to fix. So I don't know how you're thinking about this at the moment. Tell me what you think. Any questions, please put it in the comments. And as we go, because if I can make it applicable to you, I'll do my best to do so. But this happens to absolutely everybody. And I've worked with people who are just starting out, people who are have a job and they want to get promoted, or they want to start a new business, or I've worked with people at extremely senior levels, people who own their own very successful businesses, and still they are limiting themselves. So it doesn't matter where you are on the ladder, it hurts everybody. So why does this happen? Why is it so common? And why does it seem so hard to fix? This is the questions we're going to answer now. And these seem so hard to fix is the really important one. And how do you know if you have a sabotage loop? Now, one of the things that human beings do that coaches tell you all the time you should deal with is, well, there's a couple of things really. Doubt, loss of confidence, procrastination. These are the things that coaches tell you should not do. You should be motivating yourself to never have doubt, to don't procrastinate, and have rock solid confidence. When I hear them say this, I hold my head in my hands and I push back and I even laugh when I have clients who told me they've been told to have these things. Doubt, procrastination, and just worrying about the future, and holding back. These are normal things. And actually, to have doubt and sabotage and to procrastinate to a certain extent, not so much sabotage, but to procrastinate and lose confidence and doubt is actually important that you do. It's not only normal, it's actually essential for good decision making. But what people try and do is they say, no, you need to smash through this and have such confidence you just push through. And I'm going to show you why in a moment, why actually that sort of motivation and that sort of hyper positivity actually triggers off a sabotage loop. So how do you know if you have one? Well, this is more than just a normal everyday human sometimes loss of confidence, and we are meant to lose confidence. We are meant to doubt, and it actually helps us make better decisions. Think about when you needed to make a really important decision. It was going to cost you money, you were going to move job, and you think, should I be doing this? You're meant to do that because you're meant to stop, calm down, take away all the fear and the hyper, the idea, the excitement, or whatever is motivating you, and just stop and analyze and think, is this a good idea or not? Is this a good idea? And if you don't do that, what happens is we can get highly motivated either by fear or something really exciting, and we just execute it and go for it before we actually think, hey, hang on a second, is this really a good idea? So we're meant to stop and doubt. Before we're meant to make a big decision, an important decision, we're meant to stop, chew it over, lose a little bit of confidence to make us go, hang on a second, let's just think about this. And if you think it's a good idea, you carry on. If you think, actually, I'm glad I stopped, thought about it, I don't really think this is a good idea, and you go back and think out through what you were doing until you come up with a better way of doing it or a better idea, or don't do it at all. So losing confidence, having doubt, and procrastinating over things, if you're doing it at the right time and place, is very, very useful to help you make good decisions and take the best course of action. The difference between the sabotage loop is that doubt, that fear, that loss of confidence, that procrastination happens way too often for no good reason. You overly fear, you overly doubt, you lose your confidence too much. And that's the difference. So we're meant to hold back and just think, is this a good idea? But this is when you're doing it way too much and it gets completely in the way. So it feels like this for most people. Two people inside your head trying to run your business, your career, your finances, your life, and everything else. Does that make sense? Has anybody had that feeling? Has anybody had that issue when you think there's two of you inside your head trying to be in control of everything? The real you, as I call it, says, hey, let's move forward. And the other part of you says, no, don't do it. So you have an argument, you have a conflict. And the one that wants you to do it and to succeed is what I call the real you, saying, yeah, I can do this. I'm going to do it sensibly. I'm not going to be cavalier and crazy about it, but I think I can do this. I want to go for that promotion. I want to start my business. I want to charge the right amount of money. I want to go for the right client or whatever it happens to be for you. And the other part of you says, no. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm going to stop you from doing it. And that's the bit that creates the fear, which then creates the hesitancy and everything else. So I want you just to think about those two parts of your brain. It's really important to know that there's only one you, but there's two ways of thinking about the situation you're going through. So it's like driving with one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake. So if you are driving with one foot at the accelerator and one foot on the brake, is that any good? What does that do for you? So the real you, as I call it, has this plan in mind in your head. So when we are thinking about life, about 10% of our thinking should be around survival. Now, if things are going away, you're not living in a really scary place, you don't live in a war zone, you're not standing face to face with a lion with nothing between you, or you're not thinking you're going to get hit by a car at high speed, your brain doesn't really need to be in survival mode. But the real you will want to keep you healthy and safe. So the first thing it does in anything you do is just think, is this dangerous to my survival? So this is when all the coaches talk about fight or flight. And everyone bangs on about fight or flight, and then they don't really know what to do with it. This is a normal thing of your brain just to check, is this dangerous? And you do this every time you cross the road. But what you'll notice is you don't have to freak out with huge amounts of fear to cross the road. If you've been taught the right way of crossing it, you have a little bit of fear and it says, pay attention, this is a road, it's potentially dangerous to you. Your brain says, I've got this handled. And then you cross the road when it's safe. And then the moment you cross the road, the other side, your brain switches off and it says, job done, and it forgets about it. That's the normal way of dealing with most of us, for us, survival. But when we've got severe problems, when we've got something that's really dangerous to us, our brain says, right, nothing else matters but survival. And this is when we get into the fight and flight scenario with a lot of stress and a lot of adrenaline. Most of the time, though, as you can see with the 70%, we just spend our time doing problem solving. And do I have enough money in the bank? I've got petrol in the car. Have I got clean underwear? Have I? All those little problems. And then this applies to business. It applies to your job. It applies to home life. It applies to your health, everything. And we are really good problem solving machines. We spend most of our time problem solving. Now, survival is a huge ultimate problem surviving situation. But most of the time, and especially as we get higher up towards the goals, it's just about solving problems. But higher up we go, we solve better problems and life gets better. So the further we are to the bottom, the more critical, more painful they are, the higher up we are having a nice time, we're solving better problems and life's not so stressful. And then the last 20% of our thinking is about goals. It's about what we want, the fun stuff, the pleasant stuff. So if you think of most of your life is around getting through it, dealing with things, and then we have some nice stuff. So that's how we tend to think. Now, most people and coaches tell you, what are your goals? What's your driver? What's the massive important thing that you want to achieve? Well, actually, most of the time, we just want to get through life, solve some problems, and then go and do some nice stuff. And that big hyper positivity, I'm going to show you in a second, actually is very, very dangerous if you have a sabotage loop. So is everyone okay with that? It's making sense. So if you think you should be always positive, always upbeat, always feeling fantastic, and you ever had a coach tell you that, that's not realistic, because sometimes you just got to put the rubbish out and do the washing up. When you've done things like that, then you can look forward to the nice stuff. Where are we going tonight? We're going to have a nice meal. We're going to go and do this. We're going to spend time doing some fun stuff. That's reality. It's not meant. And a coach once called me negative for explaining this, because they just said everything's got to be positive. Anybody can do anything. But I'm 53, and there's no way I can win 100 meters at the Olympics. So this is not about utopic, crazy, outlandish, you could do anything sort of thinking. It's actually just letting yourself do what you're capable of. And this is where I work with people who are holding themselves back. We turn that thinking off and they get on with doing what they're capable of, and then they can move forward. That's why it's so predictable. Is this making sense? Everyone are happy with this so far? If you want to have a copy of the slides, just get in touch with us. We're happy to let you have these. But is everyone keeping up so far? Okay. Now, the other side, the sabotage thinking, actually has the same plan. And this is what confuses people. And it was about 15 years ago that when I really, really understood why people were holding on to this sabotage thinking. Because it suddenly struck me that actually the sabotage thinking that gets in the way, damages your career, limits your money and everything else, actually has the same mechanism of survival, problems and goals. When I work with a client, in the first 2 hours, I can prove to them they actually have goals in mind when they're sabotaging themselves. And that's the really crazy thing. I'll explain this more in a moment. It actually is trying to help you. But what it does is, rather than get up to goals or even solve problems in the 70%, what it does is it gets stuck at the 10%. It gets stuck in survival mode. And a sabotage loop never breaks out out of the fear of the survival mode. It never breaks out into the reality of actually helping us. So we get stuck in that 10%. And this is where the fear comes from. More and more fear, because it's saying anything you do is dangerous. You could lose money. You could get judged. You could look stupid. You could, whatever it is that you are particularly fearing, you as a person. So if you are always in survival mode, how stressful is that on the body? How stressful is that on your thinking? And is that a great way of you making good decisions and then feel enthusiastic about doing something like going for a promotion or starting a business or pushing something forward? So the two case studies I told you about, they were terrified of changing. They were absolutely terrified. And both of the people I was telling you about, who made these huge breakthroughs in their business in just in a few weeks of turning this off, both of them took over a year before they said, yes, Stephen, I need to do this. They got to the point where they were so desperate. They tried everything else. They were so desperate that they finally were so frustrated, because they hated being stuck in underperformance mode, just trying to survive, that they wouldn't let the real them just do naturally what they wanted to do. And the person they said who's got the huge new contracts, one of the problems they had was, if they earned more money, then they would lose it. So they feared being successful because they would lose it again. This is one of the reasons why they were so fearful, because years and years and years ago, they made loads of money and then lost it very quickly. So for years, they always undercharged for their services, because having money was dangerous. And this part of the brain was saying, having more money is dangerous. Now, we can sort of make sense of that, but really in the real world, that doesn't make much sense, because when it happened, they were very young and they were a bit... Hey, sorry about that then for a second. I just got thrown out. I hope that was okay for you guys. It wasn't too much. Hi, sorry about that. I literally got thrown out of the webinar. Okay, does everyone hear me okay now? Sorry about that. The internet just went down. Hey, good, I'm back. Okay, so they were underperforming because they were fearful of the consequences of being successful. Because in the past, they had a problem. So why do we do this? Can everyone hear me okay now? Is everyone, I think we're back. Yeah, great, that's great. So, hey, technology. Why do we do this? So as though the brain that created the sabotage thinking of holding themselves back, it was not trying to sabotage you. It was actually looking for a solution to help you. And that is the key to understand this. We don't do it to actually sabotage ourselves. The consequences of our sabotage is huge, but we're actually doing it to try and help ourselves. So it's not the devil, it's not a gremlin, you're not going mad, and you don't need to kill it. You don't need to overwhelm it. I've heard all of these things over the years and different things I've studied and advised people. This is not you trying to harm yourself, But the harm that you do to yourself by accident trying to help yourself in the wrong way is huge. Think about somebody who has a phobia. If you can think about someone who has a phobia of some description, any phobia you like. My dad has a snake phobia. I first learned that when I was out with my dad when I was a kid. I was about 10 years old, and we were in a park. I was with my brother, and my dad was a policeman, rough, tough guy. And then he thought he saw a snake, and he ran shouting, "Follow me, boys!" And he legged it because he hates snakes. Now, he doesn't need to have such a phobia, but his brain decided it was really useful for him to have that much fear. So think of it that way. When you think of somebody else with a phobia or fear that you think that's not necessary, to them it feels very, very real and useful. And the fear is real, so we believe it's being useful. But when you're looking at somebody else going and scratching your head and you go, it's not necessary. You can see it more objectively. But if you're doing the same thing, holding yourself back, you won't want to see it objectively, because you're feeling this conflict, you're feeling this fear, you're worried about the consequences. So when you're in it, it's very hard to look at it objectively and realize it's not. And this is what I do with people. And then the moment you can do that, you can turn it off and it disappears. So you don't need, and it's actually important not to create a ton of hyper positive motivation. I don't know if you've seen this, but how many webinars you've been on where people on slide 7 say, what's your why? What's your big thing that's going to help you blast through all your fears and doubts? And actually, it's a very dangerous thing to do. And I do not recommend it if you have a sabotage loop. And I'm going to show you why in a second. Because it's trying to help you to make you happy and successful. This is what your sabotage thinking is trying to do, but it just doesn't work. Because it's you. It's you with two ways of thinking. The real you, as I call it, the more sensible, driven, logical, but also keeps you safe on the left-hand side. And then this other thinking that you developed that says, no. Anything we do is dangerous. Anything we do is dangerous. And I'm not going to let you do it because you're just not going to survive. Someone's going to criticize you. Someone's going to judge you. You're going to lose money if you're going to wreck the whole of your family if you do anything. But it's you. It's your thinking. It's just two different ways of thinking about the same subject. And one says, hey, let's make sure we survive. This is not a crazy idea. Does it solve problems for us? And does it help us hit our goals? Actually, yes, it does. This is fine. And it's not going to affect my survival. I'm smart enough to do it in a sensible way. The other side just says, no, this is a survival problem. The mechanism that gets triggered is the one we use for not getting eaten by lions. Not very useful for your career or for building your business. But what happens is 40% of people accidentally turn on this hyper survival mechanism and use it in the wrong place. That's all it is. And this costs people fortunes in finances and enjoyment of their job and promotions and doing the things they really want to do and building the businesses they want to do. They know they're capable, they won't let themselves because they're using the wrong process in their brain by accident. So that's why it's so hard to get rid of, or it looks so hard to get rid of, because it thinks it's helping you. It's not just trying to make you survive. It also says, if we survive, then you're going to be able to hit your goals. And this is the bit that people miss out and coaches don't talk about, which I said I found about 15 years ago. It's always trying to help you, but it gets stuck in the survival and it never gets up to the goals, never gets you the result you want. So it doesn't want to go. It doesn't want to stop thinking this way. You're trying to get away with it. You're trying to tell it to shut up. You're fed up and frustrated with yourself. You're trying all these motivation techniques or using a diary, journaling, any of the techniques people showed. But actually, it's just saying, no, I'm here to help you. I'm going to help you survive, and I'm going to help you be successful. I don't want to go away because it's helping you, or so it thinks. So what happens when you get put your foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time, when I want to move forward. I want to move forward in my career. I want to move forward in my business. And at the same time, you won't let yourself. Well, you make bad decisions, you hold back, or you waste a lot of energy, you have huge stress, you get very bad results, and you stay stuck. And I'm sure most people who are on this training tonight can identify with that. So it's a huge conflict, and it wastes a lot of energy, and it's very, very stressful. So I'm going to talk about entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, you never move what I call along the entrepreneur superhighway, which is moving from possibly being a worker, employed, to starting your own business as a solopreneur, then moving to a business leader, and possibly then to be a business owner. We skip out the entrepreneur because what entrepreneurs usually are stuck in a sabotage loop. They want to do it, but they never get there. So that we want to miss that stage out. If you're in business and you have a career, you never let yourself go to that next level. So has anybody got any questions? How are people thinking on this at the moment? So if you've got any questions, please fire them in, or hopefully people are just going around and thinking about this. So, and then the last thing we were talking about of a team, if you have a business or a team, this is what holds back about 40% of your employees, because individuals have it, and in a team, 40% of people will have this too. It doesn't matter what level you're at, directors, owners, team members, people who just started. And this is one of the biggest reasons why teams underperform, businesses underperform, because 40% of people have this issue. The second reason, this is about poor leadership and management skills, and this is the other webinar we talk about. Let us know if you want to join that. But they're the two biggest reasons. People with great skills, but they're not using them because, one, they won't let themselves, or poor leadership and management doesn't allow those people to work well. So this sabotage loop mechanism, doesn't matter whether it's yourself, whether you're going as an employed career you want to create, or you're having your own business, or you're running a team, creates excessive fear, excessive doubt. If you're doubting, what's the one thing you want to do now? Not make a decision, not take action, procrastination. So it's excessive, not normal fear, doubt, and procrastination to get a good decision, make a good choice. That's normal. This is excessive. And I put laziness there because actually most lazy people who consider themselves to be lazy, they're not lazy. This is about motivation. Laziness happens. We're all lazy. I'm very lazy at playing golf. I don't like golf, so therefore I don't do it. So it's really about not wanting to do something. Laziness is a motivation issue. And if you're driving with one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake, a lot of people think they're being lazy, but actually it's just they won't let themselves because they think it's too dangerous to. But most of us identify with loss of confidence, an excessive loss of confidence, and a seeming lack of belief in yourself. And I say seeming lack of belief because if you are on this training tonight or watching it on replay, the reason you're here is because the real you knows you should be doing better. You can do better. And therefore, you do have belief. So when people say to me, oh, I've got a self-esteem problem, well, why did you phone me up and ask for help? That's the real them saying, I can do better than this. The real them does not have a problem. It's only the sabotage loop, foot on the brake, that's saying, no, I don't want you to believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself, you're going to go and take some action, then you might lose, you might fail, you look stupid, you get criticized. And it says, no, don't believe in yourself. Don't put your prices at where they should be. Don't go for the sort of client you want. Don't go for the job you could go for because it's too dangerous. So it makes you think you haven't got confidence or lack of belief. But if you are frustrated with yourself because you know you should be doing these things, you do have self-esteem, you do have confidence at the right time and place. And that's the great thing about this. It's just pure logic. If you didn't have an argument between yourself, then I would be worried. Either you wouldn't be here because you didn't need it, or you would absolutely be convinced that you have no value. If you're here, it's because you've got an argument, meaning you do have value, you're just getting in your own way. You've got the brake on. So this leads to worries, concerns, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of judgment, criticized, fear of being called arrogant. That's a really common one. Tall poppy syndrome, imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, not smart enough. They're very common. I hear these all of the time. And surprisingly, a fear of success. What are the consequences of being successful? So many people have this as a hidden one because we think, oh yeah, I want to be successful. But what happens then? People won't like me. One of my clients was, what would my family think if I earned lots of money, because they came from a part of the country where, and a family that no one had money. So they're worried about what they will be thought of. Again, fear of judgment from being too successful. Again, that's the loss of their family. Their family might not like them anymore. Everybody inside their head knows what it is. All you have to do is dig it out and find it. That's easy to do. We do that in the first 2 hours of working together. But these things, these fears, hold us back so much when they don't need to. Has anybody got any questions? Any other thoughts? Please write them up. If you do, I'm really happy to answer. So when does this tend to start? Well, 90% of sabotage loops are created before the age of 20. Before the age of 20. Which means the thinking from the past, when we were children, is now in control of your businesses and careers. It's rare that I meet somebody who's learned this from business. It sometimes happens, but the vast majority is because something happened when they were a kid. And mine started when I was 5 years old and I got shouted at and judged and scared for something I never actually did. And then I shut down. I became the shyest kid in school. And I wouldn't join in with any group exercises. I wouldn't do anything where I could stand out. And it was one incident and I actually never did it. I got accused of something and I never did it. And I was in such shock. My brain just went, I'm going to protect you from having that ever again. So then I became from a happy, ordinary kid to the shyest kid in the school. And I wouldn't tell my parents what would happen because I was fearful of what there was going on. And all this crazy stuff happens often for no good reason. Sometimes there's really, really painful reasons people come to. They've had some traumas, but sometimes we can't even think about where it comes from. So how do you fix this? This is the big question. Well, the first thing, you don't need years of therapy. You don't need years of therapy. I didn't need to go back into the past and spend years examining what happened to me. What we just need to do is identify it and turn it off. And when I say turn it off, this is what I mean. I want you to think of something, a relationship, a hobby, a job, perhaps a favorite food, a friend you liked, which you never thought you'll ever think, oh, I wouldn't stop doing this. Perhaps you had a cuddly toy when you were a little kid that you took everywhere with you, and they, your parents and family said, oh, they're always together, they love this. Perhaps you had a hobby or a sport you used to do, or if you've had relationships when you're absolutely in love with that person, or a best friend that you're going to be friends for years. You never thought you'd ever change. At the time, you absolutely were convinced this is going to be forever, and then one day you just changed your mind. For some reason, you just said, I don't like this person anymore. Or I'm bored with this job. Or I'm fed up with this hobby. And you changed your mind. You stopped. We've all done that. It's an everyday thing. You just changed your mind. So even when we've been in those situations where we're absolutely devoted to the thing that we're thinking about, one day we can change our mind. Just like that. It perhaps happens over a little time, a few little incidents, but how many of you have had a situation where you've just gone, nah, I'm done now. This is exactly the same. It's the same mechanism as when we're just making big decisions on things like that.
It's actually really easy. But why don't we change our mind about sabotaging ourselves? Because we don't want to. And this is the puzzling thing, but I've already shown it to you. We don't want to because it thinks it's going to help you. It's going to help you, but it never breaks out the survival mechanism. It wants to carry on doing it. But you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You just need to turn this thinking off. The real you is there waiting to come out. The real you already knows that you can do more. That's why you're here. You just got to turn the other thinking off that's excessively trying to protect you and then help you be successful. And it's actually as simple as that. But the first step is to find out exactly how your brain is trying to help you, that part of your thinking. And that's the important thing. 20 plus years ago, I was puzzled by this. And after many years of working with many clients, learning all the things that I learned and trying to use the techniques of this technique and that technique, and it comes down to one simple thing. How am I trying to help myself? And the first one is survive. Excessive survival. So the people I told you about, my clients, absolutely petrified of making money, then losing it, and then getting judged by their family for making money. So they had two, is one other reason, but I'm not going to say that on an open forum because that's too much confidentiality. But they had three big reasons, two of which were, if I make money, I'm going to lose it. I can't go through that again. It was horrible. And two, what will my family think about me if I make myself very, 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 very wealthy? So what did they do? They held back. They held back for years. And within just a few short weeks, they put their prices up and started landing massively bigger clients than they ever had done before in their life. And the reason for that was they were already brilliant at what they did. They just wouldn't go after the right clients at the right price because of the consequences that sabotage thinking was worried about. So maybe your brain is saying this because I get this a lot. It's not that simple. It can't be true. It is. It's just two forms of your thinking. One has a better approach to being successful, which also likes to keep you safe. And the sabotage thinking that is excessively focused on keeping you safe, that if it keeps you safe, then it hopes it's going to make you successful. But here's the important thing. This part of your brain doesn't want to go away. It will want you to doubt what I'm saying. It doesn't want you to believe this. It doesn't want it to be that simple because then you'll have to go and do something. This then leads people, and I remember the two clients I just told you about, they spent a long time saying, oh, I need to come and work with you, but they wouldn't do that because they were scared of the consequences of turning this off. And that's the loop. They wanted to, they knew they needed to, they had a problem. So what they did was they tried to do everything else. They carried on doing lots of other techniques that they'd done before, hadn't worked in the past, still tried to make them deal with it rather than dealing with the core problem, because they were subconsciously scared of what will happen if it gets solved. So while you are thinking about changing, the sabotage thinking says you can't change because it's too dangerous. The real you actually just wants to get on with it. But the sabotage thinking says, let's do everything else. Let's don't do this because it's too dangerous. Because when you were 5 years old, 7 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old, something happened to you that you didn't like, and I'm going to make sure that it's not going to happen to you again. But that was about your past, not your career and your business at the moment. How are people doing with this? We're keeping up. So I talked about why goals and hypermotivation is very, very dangerous. And the simple reason is this. If you have a goal or a strong motivation, when you're told to have massive motivation, and people sometimes feel, I've had clients say to me, They doubt their motivation. They think their motivation is not strong enough to force them to do things, to stop them procrastinating. And they almost, when they've been on big motivational seminars and things like that, they almost feel that they're not good, their motivation is not good enough, their reasons, their why is not good enough, and they almost feel deficient. They feel accused of not being good enough. And actually, that's a terrible thing to happen, but actually it's a bad thing to have really, really strong goals or try to force the motivation, because it can trigger your sabotage loop. Think about it. The sabotage thinking is saying, don't do anything, it's dangerous. If you say, no, I'm going to do this, what happens is the moment you start to push forward, your sabotage thinking wakes up and goes, nope, not letting you do that, and puts the foot on the brake again. And some people do this before they even allow themselves to have a goal. Some people do it, they start and then they immediately stop. They sign up for something and then they immediately back out of it. Some people will let themselves get part of the way there and then they sabotage. So when a lot of people start on, say, a program or doing something, they'll get 2/3 of the way through, and just as they see the end coming, they stop themselves. But they can be really enjoying what they're doing. They can be getting really good at it, but they won't let themselves finish. And it usually happens about 2/3 of the way in, just as the end is coming. Or some people, they'll get 90% of the way there and they never complete the last bit. So different people do it in different ways. Some people stop at the beginning, some people halfway through, some people at the end. But basically your brain says, no, I'm not going to let you do it. So if you're going to have a really big goal and with a really hyper strong motivation, then that can trigger your sabotage loop and says, no, I'm not going to let you do that. Which is really confusing when you've been told you need to have stronger and stronger positive motivation and believe in yourself and have bulletproof confidence. It's actually the worst thing you can do because it triggers this off. So ultimately, it comes down to this. If you don't have a goal, you can't fail, you can't lose, you can't be judged, you can't be criticized, you can't succeed. If you don't do anything, none of these things are going to happen. Except you then beat yourself up and you get really upset with yourself because of that. So you know you're failing. You know you can be doing better. But to the other side of your brain, it's keeping you safe. Don't have a goal. None of these horrible things can happen. Almost always, 90% of people, once they've turned this thinking off, their goals get stronger, they get more confident about them, and they usually get bigger. I often think of things that they've never let themselves think of before. And some people, I have to train them how to have goals because they've never let themselves have a goal. They just know they could be doing better. So sometimes you have to practice having goals, but they get bigger, stronger, more solid usually. So this is why hyper positivity and increasing motivation is a problem. It doesn't get down to the real issue. It tries to give you a temporary feel-good solution. This is why so many people go on the big motivation courses. They have a huge time. They dance around a lot. They do these cathartic things. And then 3 days later, they slump. They don't take any action. And that's a real shame. And I hate that. That's why I do what I do. So the real you does want to achieve goals. Build your business, move out the career ladder, improve your finances, make a contribution, feel like you're doing something useful for the planet, for the people around you in society. All these things we have. And that's why you're here. Because the real you knows you're capable of more. You just won't let yourself. But your sabotage thinking sees that as a threat and puts the brake on, which is very frustrating and where the conflict arises. Is this making sense to people? I hope it is. Now, here's the important thing. Your foot isn't always on the brake. And this is the real key to understanding how easy this is to fix. You don't do this all of the time. And because you don't do it all of the time, it means you're selecting which part of your thinking you're using. Sometimes your real you saying, let's move forward, and you have great ideas. And sometimes you hold yourself back. Now, it depends on which side of you, which side of your thinking is in control is the one that controls your behavior. Whatever side is active controls your behavior. So if you're spending a lot of the time on the right-hand side, sabotaging yourself, you won't do much. If you're swinging backwards and forwards between, yes, I can do it, you'll have a good day, and then next day you'll sabotage yourself. And the important thing about this is we don't sabotage ourselves all of the time on every topic. It's selective. And if it's selective and you don't do it all of the time, it means you are choosing it at an unconscious level, possibly a level you don't understand and don't understand why and when you're doing it. That's easy to find. That's what we do in the first couple of hours. But it means that you turn it on and off by choice. Unconscious choice, possibly, but you are actually choosing it. And if you're choosing to turn it on and off, guess what? It means you can turn it off permanently. That's the fun thing. That's the logic of it. That's what I like. People don't come in always sabotaging themselves. And the fact they phone up and ask for my help means that they sometimes are frustrated and fed up with themselves, knowing they can do more, which means the real side is active. The real them side is active, which means they can think clearly. They know what they want. They know what they can do, and they know they can achieve more. That's the joy of this. If you're not doing it all the time, it means you can turn it off far more. So how long does it take to turn this sabotage thinking off? Well, you've already got the hint. It takes a few weeks. It takes a few weeks just to identify it and practice it enough to be under control of it enough to know you're doing it, when you're doing it, and then how to turn it off. It's that simple. That's why I say it's not long-term therapy. It's understanding why you're doing it. So the clients I told you about, both have made, I've got hundreds of examples. Both of these people did it within a few weeks. It's that predictable. So this is the place where normally these sort of webinars put in loads of case studies and testimonials and things like that. I've given you a couple, but the reason I'm not doing it is because I want to ask you a more important question. Why does your sabotage thinking not want to believe them? That's the important one. We can put all these case studies and social proof up, and this is what you do on these sorts of trainings. And I've told you a couple. But the more important thing for people like yourselves listening to this is asking yourself why you do not want to believe them, because that is the clue to understanding why you're doing this. What is it you say to yourself when you hear these things? Well, I could never do that. I'm not smart enough to do that. That's too risky for me. It's not the right time. And I always say to my clients, when is the right time? They've had this going on for 20 plus years. I had a client, I'll give you a case study. I had a client who never let themselves go for the top job as the managing director, the CEO. 20 years they held themselves back. They got their first offer in 5 weeks. They got the second offer in 8 weeks. They held out for a buyout in the company they were in. Now they're running the company, and now they've been promoted to the division. And that's all happening in 18 months. They're now running a massive division after 20 years of never letting themselves be the number one. Why? Imposter syndrome. We turned that off. They started behaving differently. They started telling people they're ready for the job. People said, hallelujah, I've got a job for you here in 4 weeks. No, sorry, it's 5 weeks. So why does your brain not want to believe that? Because that will be the clue to discovering what your particular sabotage loop is. So self-belief, I can't do that. Fear of loss, that's too risky. Value issue, I'm not worth that. I'm not smart enough. What is it you're saying to yourself? As soon as we start to identify these things, then we start to know what we need to turn off. Your sabotage thinking will look for a reason to not go forward. The real you is desperate. Sabotage thinking says no. That's the trap. And it holds you back because it thinks it's helping you. So, bit of recap as we're coming to the end. 40% of people accidentally sabotage themselves to help themselves, not to just save themselves from failure and all the painful stuff. They actually do it as a way of being successful. But it never gets out of that 40%, that 10% bottom survival, sorry. It stops people from developing their businesses, careers, and their staff will be doing this too. It is the fastest way to improve someone's behavior and results, is just to help your team, yourself, turn this thinking off. Sabotage loops are usually created before the age of 20, which means that thinking from your past is controlling your life now. Me, I was 5 when I created mine. It doesn't really matter when you did it. It doesn't matter if you find out what time you did it, what age you were. But most people say I've had this most of my life, and it's controlling the part of you that wants to move forward, and at the same time you don't. So when people say to me, I want to fix this, and I say, no, you don't. I say, yes, I do. No, you don't. That's why you're here. Oh, yeah, I suppose so. And it wants to hold on to it. Positive thinking and goals won't fix the problem and can make it worse, as I explained. So the positive thinking and the enjoyment stuff comes after you turned it off. That's when the fun stuff happens. You are not broken. The real you is not broken. You don't need fixing. You just need a part of this thinking that you've accidentally created to be turned off. And it's interesting when I say that to people. A lot of people get very emotional because they thought they've been broken and a bit messed up and crazy. But actually, it's just a mistake. The real you is not broken. You don't need fixing. You just need to be let out of the cage. So the question is, what does self-sabotage cost you? Money, career, and time. We've highlighted time. The amount of time that people lose is colossal. Health, this can go for decades. Health, relationships, family, etc. So if you have a business, who in your business is underperforming, because you can get them to turn off, you'll get amazing results, and then you'll actually get the return on investment from actually what you pay them. How do you change it? This is the key, actually. If you're not going to have positive motivation, this is the thing that people need to be. Get really frustrated. It's almost anger with yourself. And I know you probably had that already. But to change this, you need to get frustrated and say, I've had enough, because you have to overpower the fear. And although it's not a permanent thing, the thing to do it is just get frustrated enough so the fear doesn't dominate. Anger dominates fear. You don't need to do this for very long. It doesn't sound very happy and positive. It's not. I would say, nearly all of my clients come and work with me because they have got to the point of extreme frustration. That's when we have a conversation. That's when I explain this. That's when they go, oh, and then 3 days later they go, was that it? Is that the reason I've been doing it? Why have I wasted so much time? But they needed to get frustrated, not positive, annoyed with themselves, but positively annoyed so they take action rather than annoyed and not do anything. So get a bit frustrated, book in a call. But remember, your sabotage thinking doesn't want to fix this. It thinks everything you want to do is too dangerous, but actually you're smart enough to keep yourself safe, solve your problems, and then have your goals. The real you knows how to look after yourself. It doesn't need this excessive fear and this excessive doubt and its excessive lack of confidence and thinking you've got no self-worth or value. So that's me done. If you want, please book in a call. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. I hope this has been useful to you. If you want to, please, use this form or get in contact with us. But what I'd like you to just think is this. If 40% of people do this, then you're not crazy, you're not mad. It's just an accident of thinking that causes a lot of problem. And it doesn't need to be there. Been doing this for nearly 20 years. And the longer I do it, the simpler actually I find it is to help people, because we keep it all about why you're choosing to sabotage yourself in the mistaken belief that you're actually helping yourself. So, any questions, any thoughts? please put them in the chat. Hope this was useful to you. I'll let it run for a couple of minutes. Often on these sessions, people don't often ask a lot of questions. Please do if you wish. But the reason why a lot of people don't is because their sabotage loop is saying, I don't want to ask a question in front of anybody else. So that's a fear of being judged. But if you want to have a call, have a chat, ask how to help you, please book in the call using the on the side there, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate it. Is there anything for anybody else? If not, I'll call it whenever you can go away and have a think about it. But just remember this. Frustration is going to be your ally. Not, I want you to live in frustration and anger at yourself for a long period of time. It's frustration enough to know that you do better. You can do better. So then you say, I'm going to change this. And you stay frustrated long enough so you dominate that really excessive fear that you may have, to the point where we can start interrogating it, find out what it is, and within a very, very short period of time, you'll be able to turn it off because you'll understand it for the first time ever. So this is not positive motivation. This is not hype. It's just simply knowing I'm fed up with underperforming in my business, my career, my life, whatever it happens to be. And I know I can do better. And using that frustration just to drive you, book a call, and I will happy to have a chat. So is there any other questions? Thanks, Teresa. I really appreciate that. If not, we're going to call it, and perhaps I'll speak to you soon on a call. Get in touch if you want to ask any more questions. And thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'll give it one more minute if there's anything else. It's interesting thing is when I stop speaking and say we're done, people are still hanging on. I'm done. I'm not going to, there's no more slides. I'll be here if you want to ask anything, but if not, I'll just shut it down and you can make a decision about what you want to do. But your sabotage thinking may be thinking, oh, you might be thinking that makes sense, but your sabotage thinking will be going, no, I don't want to do this. No. And then a day later, and then 2 days later, it'll convince you that you don't need to do it until the next time you really underperform, and then you get frustrated, and then I'll speak to you then. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for everybody for your time, and I'll look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care now.